Hi, it's Nate Charles, and welcome back to the Rule of Law Brief. I want to talk about what happened with these drug boat strikes in the Caribbean. I'm doing this video a little out of order. I had something else planned for today, but some of the language that's been involved in the news lately clued me into what actually happened here. Now, let me be very clear. These drug boat strikes were illegal. Absolutely, they were illegal. And they probably were a war crime. But I'm pretty sure I understand the thought process of the commanders at SOCOM and even in the higher levels of the Pentagon, and I need to explain that. The upshot is I think this was a result of garden variety stupidity. The senior officers who were involved definitely should have known better. So I am a former officer in the U.S. Navy SEALs, and I used to be assigned to JSOC. At the time that I was assigned to JSOC, we were conducting kinetic strikes under a legitimate legal framework. We had an authorization for the use of military force that was tied to our global counterterrorism campaign, and it was tied to execution orders that specifically targeted Al-Qaeda and their affiliates. The kinetic strikes that I was involved in were all within declared theaters of active armed conflict, what we called the DTAC. Everything that we did was under that umbrella. We knew exactly what legal authorities we were operating under. During that era, we developed a tactic called the double tap. And you're starting to hear this terminology come out more and more in the press. The idea is that you would hit a target with a kinetic strike. If you had any indication that the kinetic strike didn't kill the combatant, you immediately hit them again. This whole idea comes out of a small arms standard operating procedure. If you can shoot once, shoot twice. Call that a double tap. 2 bullets is better than 1. More likely to be effective. More likely to accomplish the mission. We applied the same logic to air-delivered fires. If the fighter isn't out of the fight, you finish the engagement. And that is entirely legal during a land war. Why? Because under Geneva Conventions, Common Article 3, a combatant is only protected once he is hors de combat. Hors de combat is essentially law French for out of the fight. The Geneva Conventions spell out exactly what that means in the context of a land war. He's unconscious or incapacitated. He's defenseless in the sense that he's been removed from his weapon or his weapon's been removed from him. And he has clearly expressed an intent to surrender, or it's objectively obvious that he's no longer a threat. It's only once all 3 of those conditions are met that he becomes hors de combat in a land warfare scenario. Unless and until those 3 conditions are satisfied, he's an entirely legitimate target. The problem is, I am 99.9% sure that the senior leaders at SOCOM and the senior leaders within the Pentagon just said, oh, well, if it's legal in that scenario, it must be legal in these drug boat strikes. And it's not. That legal framework that I just described does not apply at sea. The Geneva Conventions draw a bright line between land warfare and maritime warfare. At sea, once a vessel is disabled, the entire crew is hors de combat. They are out of the fight. They can no longer fight the ship. They no longer have a functioning weapons platform. And if they're in the water, that's the strongest protected status there is. A sailor in the water is a shipwreck survivor. He is hors de combat. He is a non-combatant. You cannot target him, period. This is black letter international humanitarian law, and it's not subtle. That's without even getting into the fact that there was no authorization for the use of military force by Congress. And it's even setting aside the fact that these drug boat operators were not armed. I am reasonably sure that somebody inside SOCOM thought, well, we've been double tapping combatants on land, so let's double tap these drug boats. That's not a close call. It's a categorical error. It was a catastrophic misunderstanding of the legal regime governing these engagements. It gives me no pleasure to say this as a former SEAL, but it looks like the senior officers within SOCOM took a warfighting tactic built for insurgent combatants on land and ported it directly into almost certainly illegal law enforcement maritime engagements where it was categorically inappropriate and flatly illegal. I think people want malice here. They want there to be some grand conspiracy. I think the problem here is far more mundane and arguably even more depressing. These idiots didn't know what they were doing. This is garden variety incompetence. And now we're cleaning up the consequences of that stupidity. Admiral Mitch Bradley needs to be fired. The good news for him is that I don't think he needs to be fired for being malicious, because I don't think he was. He just needs to be fired for being stupid.